and welcome to the Drive to Fight Suicide Out of the Darkness Denver Metro Experience.
Wow, that's quite a title.
And it shows how we have to get creative this year so we can still connect. So today we're kicking off the experience online.
And then tomorrow on Sunday the 27th, you can connect with others who believe so passionately in our cause by driving together through a unique experience in the mile-long Coors Field parking lot, all from your vehicle. We are bringing many of the elements of the previous Out of the Darkness community walks outside, including free honor beads and proud supporter bumper badges, the hope notes and memory areas, a resource fair, and event t-shirts for those people that raised $150 or more. This is going to be an awesome experience.
And even though this is different from our normal community walk, our mission remains the same: to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. So for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to share some powerful stories from around the metro area. And since September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, we're going to ask you to support AFSP.
There will also be a new and amazing music video at the end from our dear singer-songwriter friend Tom Prasada Rao that I bet you won't want to miss.
You may know that AFSP is all about providing education, research, advocacy, and support. Whether you've struggled yourself or lost someone, we want you to know that you are not alone. That's what the two families in our first story needed to hear. Marcella Cruz and Ray Dow needed support desperately.
Marcella and Ray have a heartbreaking thing in common. Their sons died by suicide. Mateo Garcia was 20.
It was a tough time. I didn't understand what had happened to my son. I just felt like I was going nuts. I was going through bad anxiety attacks.
Ray's son Ryan was 16.
I never really was one to cry, but when Ryan passed away, it just broke my heart. For months, I cried every single day.
I felt like I needed to speak to other people to see what they had gone through and were going through. My family, as close as we are, they struggled with me talking about my son, not my husband, but like even my kids, my sisters, they didn't want to talk about it. I had this big relief once I was able to connect with other survivors.
They talk about their child, I'll talk about Ryan, and you feel the support and you feel they understand. Well, they do understand because they're living the same thing that I'm living.
I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wouldn't be for AFSP. They have helped me every step of the way, every step of the way.
If only talking about mental health was more normal.
I wish that was something that society, schools, families, that they talked about more. We spend so much effort talking about physical health, but they're not talking about mental health. And that's the other thing about AFSP. It does bring awareness.
Yes, we think that being able to talk openly about mental health issues is crucial. It's practically a mantra to some people. Here's a perfect example. Joe Wern volunteers his services to the AFSP Colorado chapter as a photographer every year because he feels so strongly about normalizing this topic.
One of the reasons I volunteer for AFSP is I've learned through these experiences in volunteering that often just something as simple as a conversation can save a person's life. These demons that we deal with are much bigger when we're holding them to ourselves. And if we can get them out in the light of day and talk about them, they become much more manageable. It's in my conversations every day. When we can make a conversation at the office, I can't make that meeting because I have a therapy appointment, as natural as I'm going to have my knee looked at because I got injured playing softball, then we have real progress and hope. And so that's the way I show up every day. And it turns out some people come up to me and say, I'm so glad you mentioned that. or they'll ask for my therapist number. That's happened over and over again. And I'm so happy when that happens, because a little education can go a long way to saving a person's life.
Joe said it in that last story, and I'll say it again. A little education can go a long way towards saving a person's life. Education is central to our work at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And by being with us today and supporting AFSP, you are helping us develop and share education programs in many communities. Programs that give people practical strategies for recognizing the warning signs of suicide and stopping suicide in their communities.
Education can start in middle school and high school with programs like More Than Sad. There's a documentary for college students called It's Real, and a community-based presentation called Talk Saves Lives. All of these interest the young woman in our next story, who helped to start a campus walk at Arapahoe High School after her friend died by suicide.
So we had over 1,200 people show up, and we raised over $77,000. And then they were able to continue it a second year, which was really encouraging that we left that big of an impact. People were still wanting to stay involved and still wanting to be a part of it. I went out of state for school, so I'm at Baylor. And now here, because I've gotten connected with the Texas AFSP chapter, and I'm working with them to hopefully bring like an education, either Talk Saves Lives or the college video. And I'm hoping to plan, work with a committee and plan a Baylor campus walk.
Rye keeps working to honor the memory of her friend Sam.
I just am reminded of her and, her kindness and, her empathy. And even though she was struggling, that she still was absolutely amazing. And I wouldn't want anyone else to lose someone like that.
What do you think she'd think of what you've done as an activist since?
I think she'd be really proud.
We want to take a minute to point out some excellent resources on the AFSP website on how we can support our mental health and each other during this COVID pandemic. Go to afsp.org/COVID-19. As we wrap up National Suicide Prevention Month, AFSP has a new campaign called #KeepGoing. One thing you might want to do is add crisis resources to your phone and your Facebook page. Have a real conversation with someone in your life and make time to do some self-care in this difficult time. #KeepGoing.
The first question we've been asking people as we prepared for today is, how did you connect with AFSP? Sometimes the connections are complicated. Greg Young, whose Olive Garden restaurant is a longtime Colorado chapter sponsor, found the organization through Sherry Cole, who many of you know is the Colorado area director for AFSP. Sherry, along with other volunteers at the time, helped start the Colorado chapter after losing her son David to suicide.
My youngest son knew Sherry's son David, and they were good friends. Our oldest son had gone to Afghanistan and was serving overseas in the 82nd Airborne. Garrett struggled like all of us did, but he didn't necessarily talk to his mom and I as much, just because he knew that, we were struggling, we were worried. And David was there for him. I think, sorry. He touched Garrett very deeply.
The family was so shocked by David's death.
Sherry and Garrett became very close. In fact, Garrett got married and asked Sherry to do the mom and son dance with him. Sherry and I have worked together on the foundation for a number of years. Olive Garden, I'm a general manager of Olive Garden, so we do a lot of the food, donate a lot of the food for board meetings and that kind of thing. I think one of the best reasons to support an organization like this is because it increases our knowledge of what can drive suicide. I think that it lessens the ignorance around the issue. I think about David, and I think about what he meant to my son, and I know how Sherry struggled with it, and I think about what a godsend she is to people, and she's a voice among many that do what this organization does, and does very well.
One of our prime missions at AFSP is to let you know that you are not alone. You may have noticed pictures of colored beads on our videos. We call them honor beads. They represent the different kinds of personal connections to the cause.
White represents the loss of a child. Red signifies the loss of a spouse or partner. Gold, the loss of a parent. Orange, loss of a sibling. Purple, loss of a relative or friend. Silver, loss of a first responder or military member. Green, a personal struggle or attempt. Teal shows support for someone who struggles or has attempted. Blue shows support for suicide prevention and AFSP. Blue is something that all of us can wear.
The two women in our next story would wear white beads and more. Here's a snapshot of how they found a path to healing.
It was an unimaginable time for Lisa Neeson. Her son Adam died by suicide not long after his 19th birthday. 3 years later, her son's father took his life.
I had never dealt with such a dramatic loss in my life, and I was frightened of the power of the emotion, so I chose to be busy.
She worked nonstop until she couldn't.
I was feeling lots of anger. I wasn't able to focus. I wasn't able to sleep. And my manager at the time said, "Have you thought about a leave of absence?"
Christine Paul describes the time after her daughter Melina's death like being in a coma.
It's the choice. Are you going to take this trauma and go forward in your life, or are you going to take this trauma and go backwards? And I chose to go forward, finally. Took a while. And that's when I indulged myself in volunteering.
Working for AFSP gave me an outlet to learn more about mental health, to learn more about suicide prevention, because my heart wanted to make some sort of sense out of losing two very, very important people in my life, and wanting to help others have the resources and the knowledge that I felt I didn't have. And had I had, the outcomes would have been different in my life.
Every time I go into a room with those people, or a convention, or I don't care what it is, I feel I'm at home.
I really felt like I was putting my grief to work, which was very important to me, and I am so grateful to AFSP for allowing me that opportunity.
They're a lifeline for me. I have to stay involved in that community to make my life right somehow. So.
We have lost too many to suicide, including these images of loved ones shared with us recently from around Denver.
I fight because I know how hard it is to feel alone in the world, to feel like nobody's there. But I try to get people to understand that there are people there, and there are people that care about them, and they are not alone.
Here are a couple of things you may not know about AFSP. In Colorado, we collaboratively host an advocacy day at the state capitol, now annually, to connect with state lawmakers about key mental health and suicide prevention legislation. Nationally, AFSP also funds groundbreaking suicide research. This year, we're funding 38 new studies, bringing our total current investment to $20 million.
The subject of research came up when we talked to the CEO of one of our sponsors, Rocky Mountain Crisis Partners. They're the ones who answer the 24-hour crisis line in Colorado and offer immediate crisis care. We appreciate the work they do, and it turns out they appreciate AFSP.
The research that is being done through the dollars for AFSP is really big for us because we are not in the research space. So we really rely on organizations like AFSP to really take the lead in those efforts. And I have found their research and their materials really meaningful. Giving a donation really helps those that are in a place of doing something like research, like funding programs, like working with survivors. And what we know is that being with people that get us is really important to our own survival and hope.
We want to thank all our sponsors. A special shout out to Comfort Dental. They're a generous statewide sponsor and we really appreciate their support. As you can see, there are also many businesses and behavioral healthcare organizations who are sponsors for this Out of the Darkness experience.
And if you own a business or are associated with another group that would like to be a sponsor this year, it's not too late. You can sign up to be a sponsor through the rest of the year. If you go to afsp.org/Denver, you'll find a link to the sponsor forms and you can sign up. And to those who are already a sponsor, thank you again. It takes a village.
We also want to thank our volunteers. So many people work so hard and they're really passionate about it. And as you'll see in this next story, volunteering can have some serious feel-good benefits.
This is gonna sound a little cheesy, but I guess it makes me feel better to help others feel better.
Which is a good thing for someone who struggles.
I've dealt with my own struggles with mental illness for a very long time. It started to feel a little bit helpless and hopeless. And AFSP gave me an opportunity to do something and kind of take some power back into my life.
Some of my depression and anxiety is to do with self-esteem and kind of self-worth, and being able to do these things for other people and kind of immediately see the effect I have on other people. I'm just like, oh, like I'm worth more than I sometimes think I am.
Jeannie is currently the Colorado chapter volunteer coordinator. Adam puts his efforts into gathering a team for fundraising.
Having people there at these events with me it's incredibly meaningful, and it's also very emotional.
It helps in those lulls, the low points, to kind of recenter myself and kind of remind myself what I'm doing and what AFSP as an organization is doing for people like me.
The best thing that we can do is find solutions that make it better for people, and why would we ever hesitate to do that?
As a community of sponsors and volunteers and supporters, we know we have so much to do. We lose over 48,000 lives to suicide every year in our country. We can't let another day go by without acknowledging that mental health is as real and as important as physical health, and acknowledging that suicide is a health issue that affects us all.
Now, here's our AFSP Colorado Chapter Area Director, Sherry Cole.
Thank you all so much for being here today. Seeing and hearing all these stories today reminds us of the ever-growing need for education, support, advocacy, and research to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. So what can you do to support AFSP's vital work? How much do you value this work and the cause? How much can you give? You are an important part of a national movement, and we need your support as together we keep striving for our goal to stop suicide. To make your donation, go to afsp.org/Denver. You'll see details about how to get connected, and we hope you'll give as generous a donation as you possibly can. And please know that we appreciate you and every single dollar. Together, we work to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide.
Yes, we are definitely all working together. Together we support, we educate, we volunteer, we learn.
We heal, we advocate, and we raise money to do all of this. And when we raise more, we can do more to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide.
Thanks for joining us today. Before you go to the afsp.org/Denver website to give, here's a little more inspiration from singer-songwriter Tom Prasada Rao.
One of these mornings, Lord, I swear, I wake up already there, out of the darkness, into the light. That's how I feel when all is wrong, even though I don't belong, out of the darkness, into the light. Out of the darkness, coming out of the darkness. I wasn't really born to run. That's just where I'm coming from. Out of the darkness, into the light. So when I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep out of the darkness, into the light. Out of the darkness, they're coming out. Hey, out of the darkness, I wanna live like there's nothing to forgive, no one to betray, nothing left to pay. Out of the darkness, they're coming out of the darkness. One of of these mornings, Lord, I swear, I wake up already there, out of the darkness into the light. Out of the darkness into the light. One of these mornings, Lord, I swear, I wake up already there, out of the darkness into the light. That's how I feel when all is wrong, even though I don't belong. Out of the darkness into the light. Out of the darkness, coming out.